At dawn, the HOA clubhouse looks like it's being eaten by salad. A green wall surges across the parking lot, cracking, asphalt like creme brulee. A minivan coughs, then silently disappears beneath, leaves the size of dinner plates, the decorative lampposts that Denise spent $3,000 of HOA funds on last year now. Wears a coat of vegetation so thick it looks like a topiary monster. Somewhere in the chlorophyll, Denise Holbrook, HOA president and queen of approved perennials, screams with fury in her voice. Cut it back to regulation height. The landscapers run their boots, slipping on vines that seem to grab at their ankles. The hedge trimmer smokes, chokes, and dies. Someone's inflatable pool flamingo bobs in a sea of leaves, a pink beacon of suburban surrender. The vines keep applauding themselves, rustling in the morning breeze like they know exactly what they've done. I'm Miles Consincade. I teach night classes in GIS mapping and spend my days being aggressively private in Foxbury Downs, a planned community staple to the town of Elder Creek. I mow straight lines. I put my trash out on time exactly at 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. And my vice is quietly bird-watching while my coffee gets cold. I've lived here for 8 years without incident, which in HOA terms means I'm basically invisible. Denise, meanwhile, is a woman who color codes her binders, alphabetizes her spice rack, and treats bylaws like scripture carved on quartz. She's been HOA president for 6 years, running unopposed because anyone who dared challenge her mysteriously received violations for paint colors, being 3 shades too cream or mailbox, posts being 2 and too tall. She hates 2 things: descent and messy native plants. I grow natives. I also happen to know a lot about invasive species. I have a master's degree in ecology that I don't bring up at parties because I'm not a monster, but I do bring it up at HOA meetings when someone proposes botanical terrorism. That combination painted a target on me the exact shade of HOA, beige. It started when Denise announced the Foxbury Downs Serenity makeover at the March meeting, which translated to rip out rain gardens and replace them with ornamental clumping bamboo and butterfly-friendly knotweed. The proposal came with a PowerPoint that had 17 slides, 3 of which were just the word serenity in different fonts. I raised my hand at the meeting and said, the botanical equivalent of don't put a flamethrower under your porch. I explained that Japanese knotweed is on every invasive species list in North America, that it can grow through foundations, that it spreads through root fragments smaller than a thumbnail, that the UK spends millions every year trying to contain it. Denise smiled like a cat on LinkedIn and wrote me a citation for disruptive tone and unnecessary expertise. The fine was $50. Next week, crews installed Ryome rockets along every drainage swale and a cute little stream behind the playground. I watched from my deck with binoculars and a sinking feeling. I emailed PDFs state noxious weed lists, photos of knotweed, punching through concrete in other towns. I sent links to university extension articles. I even included a case study from Portland where a neighborhood spent $400,000 on removal. Denise replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a $75 fine for unsanctioned email blast, citing bylaw 14-3 that prohibited bulk electronic correspondence without board approval. I had sent exactly 4 emails. Then came the rumors that I was hoarding weeds, anti-butterfly, and somehow pro-mosquito. Parents started crossing the street when they saw me. Someone left a printed meme on my doorstep showing a grumpy cat with text. That read, I hate butterflies and joy. Denise sent a newsletter headlined, Invasives are just plants with ambition, featuring her pose beside a decorative planter labeled knotweed, spelled wrong but karmically correct. The article called me a fear-mongering botanist, which was almost a compliment, except I'm not a botanist. She trespassed to snip my milkweed, the native kind that actually feeds monarch caterpillars, and left a note that read, for in flora, not in palate. Her handwriting was as smug as her face. I filed a police report. The officer sighed and said it was a civil matter. 2 storms later, the bamboo and knotweed shrugged off their zip-tied edging and did what they do. They ran. Fragments rode the swollen creek into the culverts, choked them, and the town's artesian festival turned into the artesian flood. Water backed up through storm drains, bubbled up through manhole covers. Basements filled with 3 ft of creek water mixed with mulch and plant matter. Sidewalks buckled like someone had planted landmines underneath. The elementary school sandbox sprouted a jungle overnight, 70 tall and still. Growing, kids came to school Monday and thought it was magic. Their parents thought it was a lawsuit. The elementary school principal sent home a letter advising parents that outdoor recess was canceled indefinitely due to invasive botanical encroachment, which was the most principal way possible to say we're being eaten by plants. Denise called the county to blame beaver gangs, which would have been funny if it wasn't so. Pathetic. She actually used the phrase coordinated beaver activity in her complaint. Trouble for her. I've been mapping spread vectors all spring. Trail. Cam footage showing root systems. Spreading at 6 in per day. Drone shots with timestamps and GPS coordinates. Parcel overlays showing exactly which properties were affected and tracing the origin back to HOA plantings. I handed the data set to the county weed control officer and the State Department of Agriculture. They whistled low and long. One of them said, "This is federal." Then they called USDA a FIS, the animal, and Plant Health Inspection Service, which is the government agency you really don't want showing up in your subdivision. While that spun up, Denise doubled down. She ordered industrial-grade herbicide concentrate off a discount site, the kind that comes with a warning label the size of a poster. She had the landscapers fog the greenbelt at noon on a Saturday when families were out. Parents called 911 when their kids started coughing. Dogs were vomiting on lawns. The fire department taped off the area. A fish kill-bobbed to the surface of the retention pond like a guilty thought. Hundreds of bluegill and bass floating belly up. An inspector took one look at the totes and said with disbelief in his voice, "These labels are in Cyrillic, as in Russian, as in possibly illegal imports that definitely weren't approved for residential use." Denise claimed they were plant vitamins, agricultural supplements. The inspector's eyebrow said federal time. The fire chief said, "Ma'am, vitamins don't require hazmat suits." Foxbury Downs woke up in a quarantine zone. API's trucks lined the streets, their agents wearing government badges and expressions that said they'd seen this before, but never this bad. State biologists, county hazmat, the whole trifold brochure of agencies you never want in your neighborhood at once. News vans showed up. A reporter did a stand-up in front of the clubhouse while vines literally crept up the wall behind her in real time. The town attorney held a meeting in the gym that smelled like wet sneakers and panic. 200 residents showed up. People were crying. My maps were on the projector. Denise's newsletters were on the evidence table, printed and highlighted. Homeowners who'd been too polite to fight now, queued up with screenshots. Denise telling vendors to skip permits because they slow down beautification. Venmo requests labeled expedited serenity fee that went straight to her personal account. An email where she typed, "Natives look messy, not weed is tidy and fast. So is arson, Denise, but we don't plant that either." Someone produced meeting minutes where she'd overruled the landscaping committee's concerns by saying, "I did my own research and knotweed has gotten a bad reputation from people who don't understand ambitious plants." Another homeowner showed texts where Denise threatened to find anyone who tried to remove the invasives from their own property because it would disrupt the aesthetic cohesion of the Serenity makeover. Citations rained down like a biblical plague. Illegal planting of listed species, unlicensed pesticide, application, waterway contamination, trespass, falsifying contractor, affidavit, endangering public health. The list went on for 3 pages. Insurance adjusters arrived, took one look at prohibited plants in the policy, exclusions, and backed out of the neighborhood like a Roomba hitting a staircase. Every single home insurance policy had a clause about intentional environmental damage. The board finally voted without her 4-0 to suspend. Denise turned over all records and financial documents and authorized me to coordinate with the agencies because Miles has spreadsheets and a conscience, as one board member put it. Another added, and he tried to warn us. We should have listened. To contain the mess, the state issued abatement orders. Cut, tarp, dig, repeat, like CrossFit. But with doom leaves, every lot got a notice. Some properties needed excavation down to 4 feet to remove root systems. One family found knotweed roots under their foundation that looked like alien tentacles. Every homeowner faced bills between $15,000 and $40,000. The town levied special assessments on the HOA, which meant the HOA levied special assessments on residents, which meant everyone was paying twice. People were selling their houses at a loss just to escape. Property values dropped 30% in 6 weeks. Denise tried to rally the faithful from her porch, but the porch posts had been split by ryomes, which was an unfortunate metaphor with receipts. She stood there with a megaphone talking about persecution and how she was being scapegoated for trying to make the neighborhood beautiful. 3 people showed up. One was her sister, the kicker. Evidence surfaced that she'd imported seeds labeled craft, supplies from overseas suppliers, customs documents, tracking numbers, the whole paper trail. She'd resold cutings on marketplace as Foxberry bamboo babies for $19.95 per pot. Made almost $8,000. That's trafficking a regulated species. That's a federal crime. The courtroom smelled like mulch and reckoning. The prosecutor laid it out like a true crime documentary. Photos of flooded basement, vet bills from poisoned pets, the fish, kill, the school closure, hospital, records from 3 kids with respiratory distress. The judge watched drone footage of knotweed shoving through the clubhouse slab, concrete crumbling like stale bread. The footage was time-stamped. Over 14 days, you could literally watch the building lose. The judge asked with incredulity, "Miss Holbrook, did you really tell your community that invasives are just plants with ambition?" She nodded proudly, then added, "Butterflies love them." Her lawyer dropped his pen. The prosecutor replied in a deadpan tone, "So do fines, Miss Holbrook. So do federal investigators. So do civil lawsuits from 200 families whose property you destroyed." The defense tried to argue that Denise had acted in good faith, that she didn't understand the science. The prosecutor pulled up Denise's own emails, the ones where I'd sent her research articles, and she'd replied, "I'm not reading your scare tactics." Another where she wrote, "Regulations are for people without vision." The verdict came down like a hammer. Guilty on 8 counts of environmental violations. Guilty on fraud for the marketplace scheme. Guilty on unlawful pesticide use. Guilty on reckless endangerment. The sentence made the courtroom gasp. A restitution order totaling $247,000 to cover state cleanup costs with additional liability for civil suits. Pending 2 years in county custody with 6 months actual time. Her teaching license suspended because, yes, she taught middle school art, which suddenly explains so much about her disdain for criticism. And the chef's kiss. 5 years. Banned from serving on any board, committee, or HOA position within the county. Denise's face went from beige to eggplant. Her mouth opened and closed, like a fish that just realized the creek was poisoned. She actually said out loud, "But I was trying to help," which might have been the most honest thing she'd said in years, and also the saddest. The bife let her out while she was still sputtering about butterflies.